Chosen one, stop what you are doing and listen carefully, for this moment is not by accident. You are not here by mere chance, nor is it the result of random circumstances. This is a divine appointment, a moment in time when God has intentionally pressed pause on everything else in your life, just so He could speak directly to you. You may have come to this place feeling confused, uncertain, or even lost, wondering why things have unfolded the way they have. But know this, your presence here is the beginning of something profound, something that will unravel the confusion and bring clarity to the silence you've endured. God has orchestrated this moment, and it is crucial that you listen with all your heart. For what you are about to hear will be the key to understanding years of perplexing situations, unanswered questions, and misunderstandings that have left you feeling unsettled. You've wondered why certain things happened the way they did. And now, in this very moment, you will begin to see the truth behind those experiences. All the unanswered prayers, the long seasons of waiting, and the moments when you felt abandoned, ignored, or misunderstood, all of it has a purpose. God has been present in every moment, even when you couldn't see His hand, even when it felt like you were walking alone. What you have experienced was not random. God allowed these things to happen because He was positioning you for something greater. His plan for your life has always been in motion, but now, as you read these words, the veil is lifting. The confusion that clouded your vision is starting to dissipate. The answers you've been waiting for are now being revealed. God's timing, though it may have seemed delayed at times, has always been perfect. Everything that happened before was preparation for what is unfolding now. It may have seemed like there were periods of silence where God's voice was faint or absent. You might have questioned if He was even paying attention to your struggles, to your heartache. But the truth is that in those moments, He was preparing you for the next step of your journey. You were not abandoned. You were being refined, tested, and equipped for what comes next. There was a purpose in the waiting. There was a divine alignment happening behind the scenes, and now it is time for you to step into the clarity that has been building all along. You may not have understood why things unfolded the way they did, but now, as you stand in this moment, you will begin to see how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. God was always with you, even when you couldn't see Him, even when it felt like you were alone. He has been at work in your life, turning confusion into clarity and silence into understanding. Now is the time to pay attention. The divine message that God has been trying to communicate to you is finally breaking through the noise of your life. What once seemed like chaos will now make sense. You are here because God wants you to understand that everything you have been through has led to this point. All the trials, all the hardships, all the moments of doubt, and every feeling of being misunderstood. These were the tools God used to shape you into the person you are today. And now, He is about to reveal the deeper purpose behind it all. It's time for you to see what God has been preparing you for. The confusion you've lived with will no longer hold you captive. The silence you've endured will give way to the truth you've been seeking. God's timing is unfolding before you, and it's crucial that you pay attention. What you hear today will not only explain the past, but will also set the course for your future. Everything you have gone through, every moment of suffering, every time you felt overlooked, every disappointment you endured, it was all a part of God's plan. And now, He is speaking to you directly, giving you the clarity you need to move forward with confidence and purpose. This moment is not by accident. God has paused everything just for you, and now it's time for you to receive the divine message He's been preparing for you all along. Trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should, and that your journey has led you to this pivotal moment. God has pressed pause on your life so that you can hear His voice clearly. This is not just a coincidence, it's a divine appointment. Pay attention. The answers you've been waiting for are here. You were misunderstood. The silence that you carried, the stillness in your heart, the absence of the expected reaction, it all became a target for others to project their assumptions onto. They saw your quiet as fear, a sign of weakness, something they could manipulate. When you did not react to their provocations, when you remained calm and composed while others tried to stir up chaos around you, they mistook it for vulnerability. They thought they had figured you out. They believed that your silence meant you were passive, that it meant you lacked the courage to stand up for yourself, to defend your dignity, or to push back against the lies that were being spread. They couldn't fathom that your restraint was not a sign of fear, but a sign of divine purpose. They couldn't see that what they interpreted as inaction was, in fact, a powerful act of obedience to God. They couldn't see the strength it took to remain still when everything in you wanted to rise up and speak. They didn't understand that your silence wasn't emptiness. It was a vessel filled with divine purpose, with lessons, and with grace. They couldn't understand that you weren't silent because you lacked the strength to speak, but because you had the wisdom to wait for the right moment. God, in His infinite wisdom, allowed them to misread you. He knew they would. He allowed their misconceptions to take root, knowing that it was part of His plan for your growth. They thought they had you figured out. They believed that because you didn't react, you didn't see what they were doing. That because you were silent, you were ignorant of their deceit. They underestimated you, and in doing so, they set the stage for God to reveal the truth in His perfect time. While they plotted, schemed, and thought they could use your silence against you, God was at work, orchestrating the entire scenario. He was using their misunderstanding as a divine tool to shape you, to teach you, and to prepare you for something greater. They thought they were taking advantage of your quiet nature, but what they failed to realize was that God had ordained that silence. It was not a moment of weakness, but a moment of learning. It was in that silence that God was teaching you the lessons of restraint, of impulse control, and of authority over your emotions. He was teaching you that not every battle needs to be fought with words, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remain still, trusting that God is fighting on your behalf. You may have felt the weight of their misunderstanding, the tension of holding your tongue while lies were being spread, and the frustration of watching them believe they could outwit you. Every part of you may have wanted to speak out, to expose the truth, to clear your name, to defend yourself. The desire to react to their provocations was natural, but God called you to obedience, to trust in His timing and His justice. In that obedience, you learned the power of restraint. You learned that not every word needs to be spoken, and not every fight needs to be engaged in. You learned that sometimes the greatest strength is the ability to hold your peace, and that peace, that stillness, became your weapon. God's plan for your life was unfolding in the silence. While the world thought your quietness was a sign of passivity, God was preparing you for something far greater. He was refining you in the fire of misunderstanding, teaching you to hold your peace while the world around you tried to provoke you into reacting. He knew that your heart needed to learn to trust His process, that you needed to learn that some battles are not meant to be fought on your own, but with God fighting on your behalf. And so, He allowed the silence to stretch longer than you wanted it to test your patience and your trust in Him. But all the while, He was building in you the strength you would need for the battles ahead, the wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain silent, and the authority to stand firm in your faith, even when others didn't understand. The silence was not your defeat, it was your preparation. It was in those moments of stillness that God was fortifying your spirit, making you stronger than you ever could have been through confrontation. He was teaching you the power of obedience. He was teaching you that sometimes doing nothing is the most powerful thing you can do. By staying silent, you allowed God to move on your behalf. You didn't need to fight. You didn't need to explain yourself. You didn't need to prove anything. God was moving in the background, working on your behalf, and preparing you for a victory that would be all His. When the time was right, the truth would come out. The lies would be exposed. The manipulators would be revealed. But all in God's timing, not yours. Your obedience in remaining silent, in trusting God's process, was a powerful act of faith. It was a declaration that you believed God's word more than you believed the lies of the enemy. It was an act of surrender, a trust that God was working in ways you couldn't see, orchestrating the pieces of your life even when it seemed like everything was falling apart. You may not have understood it at the time, but God was building in you a deep sense of authority, an authority that doesn't come from fighting back or defending yourself, but from knowing that God is on your side and that He is always working for your good. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was a display of divine strength, a sign that you were willing to trust in God's justice, His timing, and His plan, no matter how long it took for the truth to be revealed. And now, looking back, you can see how every moment of restraint, every time you chose not to react, every time you chose to obey rather than defend yourself, was part of God's greater strategy for your life. You didn't have to prove your worth or fight for your place. God was positioning you for something far beyond what you could have achieved through your own efforts. Your obedience in the silence was the key that unlocked the door to your future, to the life God has called you to live. You may have been misunderstood, but God understood you completely. And now, He is using that very silence, that obedience, as the foundation for the new season of your life. The victory that was once out of reach is now within your grasp. You have learned the power of obedience, the strength of restraint, and the authority that comes from trusting God's plan over your own. You are no longer bound by the need to explain yourself, to prove your worth, or to defend your actions. You stand in the quiet confidence that God is on your side, that He sees you, and that He will vindicate you in His perfect time. You no longer need to fight for your place. You have been positioned by God, and the silence that once felt like a burden is now a testimony to His power and His divine timing. The world may not have understood you, but God did. And now, you are stepping into the fullness of the purpose He has prepared for you, knowing that the silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the very thing that allowed God to do His greatest work in your life. As you look back on the seasons of delay, confusion, and silence, it may be hard to see how those moments could have served any purpose other than to frustrate you. You may have wondered why God didn't act sooner, why He allowed the injustice to stretch on for so long. But now, as the truth begins to unfold, you see with clearer eyes that every moment of waiting, every instance of unanswered prayer, was part of God's divine strategy to bring about your vindication. God's timing in your life is never accidental. The delays in His intervention were not signs of neglect or indifference. In fact, they were strategically placed to allow His plan to unfold in the most powerful way. Premature exposure would have robbed you of the full vindication you were meant to experience. You see, if the truth had come out too soon, if the lies had been exposed before the right time, you would not have had the full weight of God's justice behind it. Time was necessary to let the motives of those who sought to harm you mature and reveal themselves for what they truly were. The silence you endured, the times when you felt as though God had forgotten you, were actually His way of preparing the perfect moment for the truth to be revealed. God used time to build the foundation for your vindication, making sure that when the truth came to light, it would be undeniable and without question. The waiting was not in vain. It was divine preparation. You may have felt as though the enemies surrounding you were making all the moves, setting up their plans and getting away with their deception. They might have thought they had control, that their schemes were well placed and invisible to you. But what they didn't know is that God was watching every move they made. Every time they tried to manipulate the situation, every time they believed they had you cornered, God was allowing it for a reason. He allowed their plans to unfold because He knew that their deception would ultimately work against them. As they grew bolder in their tactics, they began to reveal their true motives. What they thought was control was actually the beginning of their unraveling. What they intended for harm was setting the stage for God's perfect justice to be displayed. God's silence during this time was not passive. He was silently preparing the ground for a powerful act of divine justice. The very schemes they thought would bring them victory became the evidence of their deceit. The lies they whispered and the manipulations they used to try to destroy you were the very things that God was going to use to expose their true nature. God's justice was at work, quietly, behind the scenes, orchestrating the perfect timing for your vindication. As the plot against you unfolded, it became clear that what was intended for harm was being used to strengthen you. While they plotted, God was preparing you for the moment of reversal. This wasn't just a shift in circumstances. This was a divine act of justice, one that would silence all accusations and bring clarity to the situation. The reversal you are now witnessing isn't a coincidence or a stroke of luck. It is the hand of God intervening on your behalf. What looked like a defeat, what felt like betrayal, what seemed like failure, was all part of God's plan to position you for a greater victory. And now, as the tables turn, it will be undeniable that it was God's hand at work. Your enemies will eventually see the outcome, and it will be impossible for them to deny the truth. The very things they thought would destroy you will now be the very things that elevate you. What they meant for your harm has now become the soil for your growth. The reversal that is unfolding in your life is a divine act of intervention, and it is happening quietly, without the need for fanfare or attention. God doesn't need to make a big show of his power to prove his authority. His intervention is powerful enough to change the course of events without a single word being spoken by you. The truth will be revealed, and when it is, no one will be able to deny that it was God who orchestrated the entire situation. Your enemies may have thought they had won, but the reversal is coming. The timing of it, the way it unfolds, is part of God's perfect plan. It is not about revenge. It is about justice. It is about vindication. It is about God showing the world that his hand was always at work in your life, even when you couldn't see it. As you watch the reversal unfold, you will see how God's hand has been moving in ways you never could have imagined. The pieces are falling into place, and the people who once tried to manipulate the narrative will now have to witness the truth in its full glory. The victory that once seemed out of reach is now yours, and it is all because of God's intervention. He has worked behind the scenes, quietly and powerfully, to bring about this moment of vindication. Your enemies will see it, the world will see it, and you will see it too. The power of God's reversal is undeniable, and it is unfolding right before your eyes. This isn't just a shift in circumstances. This is a divine intervention. God's timing has been perfect, and the truth that was hidden in silence is now being revealed. The lies, the manipulation, the hurt, they are all being exposed for what they truly were. And in this divine reversal, you will be lifted up. You will be vindicated. You will see that God was with you every step of the way, even when you didn't know it. The very thing that was meant to break you is the thing that is now propelling you forward. The silence was part of the strategy. The delay was part of the plan. And now, as the truth comes to light, it will be clear that God was always in control, always watching, and always working behind the scenes to bring about your ultimate victory. God's intervention is quiet but powerful. It doesn't need to be loud or dramatic to make an impact. The reversal in your life will be undeniable. It will be evident to all that it was God who made it happen. The hand of God is at work in ways you couldn't have predicted. And now, as you stand on the other side of this reversal, you will see that all the waiting, all the silence, all the tension, it was worth it. God's timing is perfect, his justice is certain, and his intervention is the very thing that is bringing you to the place of vindication. This reversal is not just a shift in circumstances. It is a divine act of God's power and presence in your life, and it will be undeniable. In the moments when everything within you urged you to speak, to defend, to react, you chose silence. And in that silence, you found your strength. While others assumed your quietness was a sign of weakness, God was using it as a weapon, shaping your spirit and preparing you for what lies ahead. Your silence was not a void, it was a shield. It was a space where you allowed God to do the work you couldn't do on your own. They didn't understand that the restraint you exhibited was not born of fear, but of wisdom. Every time you chose to remain silent in the face of false accusations, in the midst of misunderstanding, in the heat of confrontation, you were choosing divine protection over impulsive reaction. The world may have seen it as passivity, but in the spiritual realm, it was a declaration of faith. By staying silent, you allowed God to speak on your behalf, knowing that His voice carries more weight than any word you could speak. Silence, when aligned with obedience, becomes a powerful force. It is not about avoiding confrontation or ignoring injustice. It is about trusting that God is the ultimate judge, the ultimate defender, and that in His timing, He will make all things right. You did not need to fight for your reputation. God was fighting for you, using your silence as a means of protection and positioning you for a victory that no one could take away. As you walked this path of obedience, you began to move forward with a sense of peace that surpassed your understanding. The clarity you once sought through arguments, explanations, or attempts at control came instead through trusting God's plan. You stopped looking for validation from others and began to walk in the quiet assurance that God had already determined the outcome. The peace that came from obedience was not the absence of conflict, but the presence of trust in God's timing and process. You learned to let go of the need to control every detail, to micromanage your circumstances, or to force things to unfold in your own way. Instead, you learned the profound freedom that comes when you trust God to fight your battles, and you simply align with His will. This is where true peace comes from, understanding that God is in control, and that everything is unfolding according to His perfect plan. As you surrendered to His timing, you began to experience a peace that no human effort could provide. It was a peace rooted in the deep conviction that God is with you, that His plan for you is good, and that nothing will thwart His purpose for your life. This is the clarity that comes from walking in alignment with God's divine authority, knowing that your steps are guided, your path is set, and your life is in His hands. Walking in divine authority does not mean striving to make your mark, fighting for recognition, or attempting to control others. It means walking in the quiet strength that comes from being fully aligned with God's will and His timing. It is a strength that does not seek attention, but is felt by those around you. Your authority is not something you have to prove. It is something that is given to you by God. This is what it means to walk in authority without arrogance, understanding that the power you carry is not of your own making, but comes from your alignment with God. It is the authority that comes from knowing who you are in Christ and trusting that He will use you according to His will, not for your own glory, but for His. This kind of authority is grounded in humility, knowing that every step you take, every word you speak, and every action you perform is done under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. It is a quiet, steadfast strength that doesn't demand to be seen or heard, but is felt deeply by those in your presence. This is the authority that transforms atmospheres, that changes hearts, and that shifts situations without the need for force or manipulation. It is the authority of someone who has been refined through obedience and silence, someone who has learned to trust God even in the most difficult moments. God's divine positioning has brought you to this place, this moment, where you stand not by your own efforts but by His grace. He has placed you exactly where you need to be, and from this place, You are walking in the authority He has given you. This is not the authority that comes from striving or pushing for control. It is the authority that comes from trusting in God's plan and timing. You are positioned to lead, to influence, and to make a difference, not because of your strength, but because you are aligned with the one who holds all power. This alignment with God's will has placed you in a position where you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. Your life, your actions, and your words now reflect the authority of the one who has called you. And this authority is not loud or brash. It is steady, unwavering, and peaceful. You no longer need to explain yourself or justify your actions because your alignment with God speaks for you. Those who are meant to hear your voice, to witness your leadership, will do so without you having to force it. Your authority is undeniable, not because you demand it, but because God has ordained it. This quiet strength, this authority rooted in God's will, has been built over time. It is the result of every moment of obedience, every choice to remain silent when you wanted to speak, every act of restraint when you wanted to fight back. You have been prepared for this moment, and now, as you walk in God's authority, you carry with you the strength that comes from knowing you are positioned exactly where you need to be. This strength is not born from your own ability to control the situation, but from your trust in God's ability to work in the unseen, to turn the tide in your favor when it seems like everything is against you. God has placed you in this position, and He will continue to guide you, strengthen you, and equip you for what lies ahead. This is the authority that comes from being aligned with God's purpose, and it is this alignment that will carry you forward, no matter the challenges or obstacles that come your way. You are no longer moved by external circumstances or the opinions of others. Your strength, your peace, and your authority come from knowing that God has already gone ahead of you, that He is with you, and that He is guiding every step you take. As you continue to walk in this divine authority, you will see how everything around you begins to shift. People will notice the strength in your silence, the peace in your presence, and the wisdom in your words. The authority that once seemed like something you had to fight for is now simply a part of who you are. It flows naturally from your alignment with God. You no longer need to prove your worth, to seek validation, or to strive for recognition. You are walking in the authority that God has placed in you, and that authority speaks louder than any words you could say. It is the kind of authority that changes lives, that shifts atmospheres, and that brings clarity and peace to the chaos around you. This is the strength you have found in silence, in obedience, and in trusting God's divine plan for your life. It is the strength that comes from knowing that you are exactly where God has placed you, and that nothing can take you from the path He has set before you. This is the authority that will carry you through every challenge, every trial, and every victory. It is the authority of someone who has learned to be still, to listen, and to move when God says move, knowing that every step taken in His will is a step toward the fulfillment of your divine purpose. As you reflect on the journey that has brought you to this moment, it becomes abundantly clear that God's plan is never rushed. His timing is always perfect, and while it may not always align with our human expectations, it is always, without fail, exactly what is needed. Every delay, every season of silence, and every moment of uncertainty was part of a much larger divine strategy. In the quiet of those waiting moments, God was at work, shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for this very season. You may have questioned the timing, wondering why things didn't move as quickly as you hoped, but now you can see how every step, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has led you here. God's plan is unfolding just as it should, and everything you have gone through has positioned you for the favor and the authority He is now releasing into your life. The survival, the silence, and the obedience you demonstrated along the way were not in vain. They were the very things that positioned you for divine favor, a favor that does not come from human hands, but from the hands of a sovereign God who has seen your heart your obedience, and your unwavering trust in Him. Now, as you stand on the precipice of this new season, you can walk confidently knowing that God has already gone ahead of you. The path has been prepared, the doors are opening, and you are stepping into the fullness of your purpose with grace and clarity. This is not the time to look back or question the past. It is the time to walk boldly into the future, fully aligned with God's plan. You are now stepping into a season of favor that is uniquely yours, a favor that flows from God's authority and His perfect design for your life. Your crown has been prepared, not by the hands of men, but by the very hand of God, who has seen your journey and has set you apart for this moment. You stand here in this new season, not by your own strength or effort, but by the grace and favor that God has lavished upon you. As you move forward, there is no need to strive or prove yourself. Your crown has already been established. You are walking in the authority that God has given you, and nothing can take that away. It is not about seeking validation or chasing after approval. It is about standing firm in the favor and the authority that God has placed on your life. You are His chosen one, and He has prepared a place for you in this new season. Walk confidently, knowing that you are walking in alignment with His divine purpose. Your journey, the lessons learned, the battles fought, and the silence endured have all prepared you for this moment. Now is the time to rise, to step into your calling, and to embrace the favor that is yours. As you do, remember this: your crown is not of this world. It is not based on what others think or what they say. It is the crown that comes from walking in obedience, from trusting in God's timing, and from remaining steadfast in His purpose. Now, as you take this step forward, I encourage you to make a declaration. Comment, "I will rise," below, as a symbol of your trust in God's plan for your life. This is more than just a phrase. It is a declaration of faith, a statement that you are aligning yourself with the divine order that has been set in motion. It is a promise that you will rise, not in your own strength, but through the strength that God provides. You are not just rising for yourself. You are rising for the purpose that God has placed on your life. Your rise will be a beacon of His glory, a testament to His faithfulness, and a living example of the power of trust, obedience, and divine vindication. And as you make this declaration, I encourage you to share this message with others who need to hear it. Share the light you have found in your journey of trust and obedience. Let others see the power of divine vindication at work in your life. You are not alone on this journey. There are others who need the encouragement and inspiration that you carry. By sharing this message, you are not only spreading hope, but you are also shining the light of God's truth, helping others to align with His divine plan for their own lives. Your story of faith, of rising, of walking in favor, will inspire others to do the same. This is your moment to shine, to walk confidently in the favor that has been prepared for you, and to help others find their own path of divine alignment. You are not just walking into your destiny. You are walking in a way that lights the path for others. The journey ahead is bright, and with God by your side, nothing will be able to stop you. Rise, chosen one. Rise into the fullness of what God has prepared for you. You are not just surviving, you are thriving. And as you continue to walk in His favor, you will see the fruit of His promises unfold before you, step by step, in His perfect timing.